Greetings, friends. Welcome to CTUCC ConferenceCast for December 19th, 2014, the regular podcast of the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ. Whoever you are, and wherever you may be on life's journey at this very moment, you are welcome here. We begin this week's conference cast with this meditation from the Reverend David McCallister, Associate Conference Minister for Youth and Young Adult Ministries. Day has been struck by these words of Dennis Bratcher, posted on his website, The Voice, and read here by Connecticut Conference Associate Editor Drew Page.
Advent is marked by a spirit of expectation, of anticipation, of preparation, of longing. There is a yearning for deliverance from the evils of the world, first expressed by Israelite slaves in Egypt as they cried out from their bitter oppression. It is the cry of those who have experienced the tyranny of injustice in a world under the curse of sin, and yet who have hope of deliverance by a God who has heard the cries of oppressed slaves and brought deliverance. It is that hope, however faint at times, and that God, however distant God sometimes seems, which brings to the world the anticipation of a king who will rule with truth and justice and righteousness over God's people and in God's creation. It is that hope that once anticipated and now anticipates anew the reign of an anointed one, a Messiah, who will bring peace and justice and righteousness to the world.
Dennis Bratcher sums up the need for Advent in his explanation of the season on the Voice website, crivoice.org. According to Bratcher, Advent is inextricably linked to justice. I did not grow up with this understanding of Advent. I celebrated hope, love, joy, and peace with the lighting of each candle, and considered these terms as pre-existing conditions in the church. I thought, we are people of hope, bound together in love, joyful at the presence of Christ, and existing in a peace that passes all understanding. I assumed as a child that each of these terms were neutral at best, descriptions of our current reality. It never occurred to me that the waiting in Advent was for each of these terms to be made known to all of God's creation. Yet today I know that an entire community in Newtown hopes for the day when no parent will have to bury their child because of gun violence. I recognize that many people across the world yearn for a love of humanity that would prevent and abhor the use of torture by any individual group or country state. I know that immigrant families long for the day of joy when dreamers, sons and daughters, can celebrate birthdays, graduations, quinceañeras, weddings, and funerals surrounded by whole families. I know that young adult leaders in Ferguson, New York, and Cleveland have galvanized a generation to cry out for peace that will only come when we let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream, as the prophet Amos said. I now know that we wait with anticipation for hope, love, joy, and peace. Here is a prayer for this week. We pray with anticipation for the day when your hope, love, joy, and peace will be made manifest in our lives. Come, Holy One, come.
In the news this week, as we prepare for Christmas celebrations next week, Conference churches have been holding special worship services, singing anxiously prepared music, and spending a few evenings in quiet contemplation, aware that the brief days of this season and their bitter counterpoints to the festive lights have their analogues in the human heart. God gave us Jesus not because the world is merry, but because it suffers. It is the gift of Jesus which inspires our joy. Retired staff members of the Connecticut Conference enjoyed a luncheon in their honor here at United Church Center last week, and the Board of Directors gathered to continue their work, including ongoing training in recognizing and eradicating racism. As they met, the voices of the church choir rehearsing in the sanctuary nearby floated in. The national staff of the United Church of Christ offered Christmas greetings to the denomination via video, and so has the staff of the Connecticut Conference.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King.
Released just last night, the 8-minute episode of Vantage Point features well wishes, wisdom, and whimsical meditations, including office manager Emily Hale and associate editor Drew Page's rhyming reflection from space. Make sure to check it out on the homepage of CTUCC.org or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CTUCC. You'll find both videos and all the current headlines at ctucc.org/news. Interdependence is a pre-existing condition. We need one another. We believe that together we can accomplish more than we would as individual churches working in isolation from one another. This is our vision, and we invite you to become a partner in helping this vision come alive in new and dynamic ways. Become a friend of the conference. You can support us online at ctucc.org/donate. Consider joining the Farmington Valley Association's mission trip with Simply Smiles to the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation in South Dakota. The trip is in May, and there's an information session in Avon on January the 7th. Stepping Stones returns on January 15th with Lenten activities for all generations in Tolland. If you're a high school-age youth who's thinking about working for God for a living, there's a weekend retreat for you at Silver Lake on January 30th. Clergy women are invited to a special retreat day to refresh themselves with soul food for the journey, courtesy of CT Women of the UCC on February 3rd in Glastonbury. There are still openings in this year's confirmation retreats in February and March. If you're leading one of those classes, consider bringing your group to Silver Lake for a weekend learning about becoming and belonging in company with other young people from around the state. Get ready for summer with a workshop called Unpacking Vacation Bible School on February 7th in West Hartford. The Stepping Stones workshop, team building with youth groups and adults too, will be February 10th in Cheshire, followed by another Stepping Stones event, Church Asset Mapping for Faith Formation, on February 26th in Milford. You can learn more about all the Stepping Stones workshops at ctucc.org/steppingstones. Young people have an opportunity to prepare to be a counselor in training at Silver Lake with a weekend conference March 13th through 15th. And make sure Super Saturday is on your calendar. This day of workshops features keynote speaker the Reverend Reuben Duran, who works on promoting new church development for the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. This joint venture with the Massachusetts Conference will be held March 21st in Ludlow, Massachusetts. And there are even more events on our calendar. Maple sugaring at Silver Lake, stewardship, spring action, and even the next youth revival. To learn more about these events or to register, visit us at ctucc.org/events. Our Spirited Wednesday thought comes from the Reverend Mary Lou Howson, an interim pastor and spiritual director. One of her favorite paintings of the angel's visit to inform Mary that she would become the mother of the Messiah is the Cestello Annunciation by Botticelli. In it, Mary is captured as she turns to the angel, a posture which can't be held without falling. Reverend Howson writes, "The painting represents that open, vulnerable moment when we let go of the securities of the past and the certainties of our own minds and open to God's call into a future we cannot imagine. It is the moment when something new is conceived within us, and still off balance we say yes to a new way of being that we cannot yet envision or comprehend." For a special Christmas reflection this week, here's a poem for the morning after Christmas. The clamor has subsided from the din of Christmas morning. The child's gleeful cries to see the new toys shine and bob and spin have faded into soft, contented sighs. The rattle of the wrappings gathered up, the whisper of the newly donned wool shawl, the clatter of the saucer and the cup now rest embedded silent in the wall. Perhaps we now appreciate the cheer that wrought such merry chaos yesterdawn, and now we might, as Spirit's grace appears, hear echoes across centuries of morns, to where a weary mother lifts her son to nurse and love the infant Holy One. And that brings this conference cast to a close. Thanks to Dave McCallister for her reflection, and to GarageBand for our music. Special music this week comes from David Jarvis. Primary funding for ConferenceCast comes from your congregation's gifts to our church's wider mission basic support, changing lives through the United Church of Christ. This is Eric Anderson, the Minister of Communications and Technology for the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ, praying that your days this week may be filled with the presence, the guidance, and the grace of God. A program note: ConferenceCast will return with a special edition for Christmas week this coming Monday, December 22nd, with a reflection provided by Conference Minister the Reverend Kent Salati. And then we'll be on break for the holidays, with the next regular edition of ConferenceCast coming on January 9th. We'll be with you then.